All right. I need your help understanding this concept.
Yeah.
This is a little bit of a thing, so you can break this down for me. In the double slit experiment, we introduce a measuring device that can reveal which slit the particle went through.
Yeah.
What physical interaction is happening, and why does that interaction suppress the interference pattern that we see on the screen?
Yeah.
I'll keep going because I think you're hopefully.
I'm following this so far. If you want, I can help explain it a little.
Jesus, if you're not. Okay. So even if we say we have controlled for the influence of the measuring device in the double slit experiment, the device has to be introduced in the first place. So it never feels like a perfect controlled experiment. Right. I accept that the maths and the predictions match the outcomes, but the question still stands. How do we observe it without affecting it? Yeah. In quantum physics, the observer usually means the physical measurement interaction that creates the which slit information, not a conscious person watching. Yeah. But you still have to have a person in the experiment to then read that information to reveal the results. What exists when nothing's being measured and when there's no measurement tools that are present and nobody reads any recorded results? Yeah. We know the tools affect the experiment, but could the act of reading the measurements also have an effect? Or do we simply not know? You still have to observe the results. It's still called the observer effect because something weird is happening when we measure it.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on here?
Okay. So the double slit experiment can do with light, but you can also do with electrons. You could even do it with other particles. You have a wall with two narrow slits in it, two narrow gates or doors or openings in it. And you have one source, like an electron source or a light source or something. And as the light goes, if you imagine light first, because we are more comfortable thinking of light as waves. So I think we're more comfortable thinking of light as waves. I've just spent a bit of time telling you light as particles.
It's fine.
You could even do this with water waves. If you have a pool of water in a tank.
I like this.
Pool of water in a tank, and at one point you wobble the water to create waves, right? You have some sort of paddle and you wobble the water. Waves are coming. Now you have a wall, like a sort of, not a dam, because the water is the same height on both sides, because we've got this wall with two gaps in it. Now, the waves come up to the wall, and they're stopped by the wall, but two bits of waves get through. But now those waves, the ripples don't continue just like as narrow little ripples, because that's not what happens. The ripples turn into semicircle sort of ripples that come out, and as the ripples come out as sort of semicircles, they interact with each other. And at some points, you've got the up ripple on one side and the up ripple on the other side at the same point, and you get more up, because it's up and up. But at some points in this water tank, the up ripple on one side happens at exactly the same moment as the down ripple on the other, and they just cancel each other out. So if you were a little tiny boat floating on that bit of water, you wouldn't go up or down. That's this interference effect. So that's the idea that as waves come through a double slit, after the slit they ripple out, and the ripples, they ripple out in these semicircles, which is why they end up overlapping each other. So when you then do a detection on a screen, the screen is a little bit further away, and you're basically measuring the height of the ripples. There'll be some bits where the ripples are high, because the up from one side and the up from the other side match. And there'll be some bits where the ripples just cancel each other out. So if you then painted the wall with like, starts white and you paint it black where the ripples are high, you'll get a sort of stripy pattern. Some bits are black because the ripples were high. I've had a go at explaining it with the least amount of technical vocab I can think of, and I'm not sure I succeeded, but I'll try. So that was water waves going through a double slit, and water waves will always do that. Water waves are at a scale where the quantum doesn't show up, so we can't meaningfully talk about a particle of the waves on the water. Right, so let's do the same thought experiment now, but with light. We'll have a light source. It'll go through a box. It'll meet a wall. The wall blocks the light, but in the wall there are two slits. their cuttings. The light now goes through. Now the light spreads out in this kind of sort of semicircles. That feels a little bit weird to us because we normally would imagine shadows, but the slits themselves are so narrow now. They're actually narrow compared to the wavelength of the light itself. And so the light does, it bends out as it goes through these slits, it bends out. And now on the other side of the wall, we have light spreading out from one slit and spreading out from the other slit, and sure enough, they overlap. And light, as a wave, has the same thing. Where the up and up happen at the same time, you get more of this ripple, the light wave. But where the up from one overlaps with the down from the other, just by position, just happens to be how long it took the light as it rippled out to go from one slit and the other slit. As it gets there, one had to travel a bit longer, it took a bit longer, and it's now at the down instead of the up. They cancel out. That's this interference effect. So that's wave behavior. You get the interference because of the ripples. After the double slit, you get these ripples. So let's now think of something that's a bit provocative, which is an electron. And most people, if you've got any picture of an atom at all, you're picturing electrons as these little particles that are on the atom. So we have an electron source, and we send electrons towards these two slits. There's a wall. So electrons are being sprayed out by an electron source. Most of them are just hitting the walls and being blocked. But at the slits, electrons get through. What happens now? Well, if you measure them on a screen, just as I described, you see the same interference effect.
As the waves.
As the waves. And then you say, okay, I'll be really wild. What I will do is I will turn down the power of my electron source. My electron hose, I'll turn the tap down, 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 and down until I am only emitting one electron at a time. So in this system, there's only one electron. We think of it as a particle. Yeah. As I say that, I am saying particle language. I still measure the interference effect? I can't measure an interference effect. One electron, I can't measure. One electron is going to be measured somewhere on my screen, which is after the double slits. One electron will be measured somewhere. So what I have to do to see the interference effect now is I have to sit there and accumulate measurements. I have to wait a while. So one electron goes through, it lands somewhere. Another electron goes through, it lands somewhere. Another electron goes through, it lands somewhere. At every moment, there is only one electron traveling in my system. But after I send 1 million electrons through, I just wait. I let my experiment run and I wait. I then go and look at my screen, my detector, and I say, where did the electrons land? And the electrons landed more here and less here and more here and less here. It's this same stripy interference pattern. And the only way to explain that is to say that the electron, on its own, as a single electron, sort of traveled through both slits and interfered with its trajectories, interfered with itself after the slits, just like waves do, which is why the probability of detecting the electrons on the screen matches the interference probability. It's pretty cool, isn't it?
It's very cool.
Now, your question...
It's kind of like it knows the future.
Yeah.
Is that a stupid way to say it?
It's... Some scientists... It's not really stupid. Some scientists find that a really helpful way to sort of think about it. The problem, knowing the future is really hard because of sort of the way time works. So another way of saying it is that it takes both paths at once. It doesn't, the way you describe it is you say, my little cartoon picture of an electron being like a little ball that goes tootling along. A ball through two doors has to go through one of those doors. But that's not quantum land. In quantum world, the electron is now at a different scale where its quantumness is more prominent just because of its scale, size, energy, and so on, right? And so its quantumness is more apparent, and that means it experiences traveling through both doors at once. And that then raises the question, you suddenly start to say, well, what if I put a little measurer at the door, at the slit? What if I put a little measurer and I look for the electron there? And you can. And if you do that, you stop seeing the interference pattern. Because the only way to, when you say a measurer, like shops sometimes have, old school shops had a little Like,
beep.
and you'd walk in,
Yeah.
beep, yeah, and the shop owner would know someone was there to talk to, right? So you could put a little somehow some sort of measurer at the slit, at the gate, at the door, and you could look for an electron. But now, if you're counting an electron there, you're counting. If it was a wave, how would you measure a wave just went through now? The point about a wave is it is this kind of, when you go and look, we casually at the beach say, look, there is a big wave. But a wave is this repeating, that's the point of a wave. The wave is this repeating pattern, which means where is the wave is not a sensible question to ask. The wave, mathematically, the wave is everywhere. At the ocean, the wave is across the water. And there is a peak that comes to the beach now, and then a trough that comes to the beach as the water recedes, and then the next peak. Those are different peaks on the wave, but the wave, mathematically, a wave is this, right? It's an oscillating signal. So, as soon as you put your little gate measurer and look for an electron coming through, you are if you measure a click or a beep, you've counted a particle. And at the point of doing that, you have actually the act of measuring that thing there as a particle. You've forced the electron to behave as a particle. At that point, which path it went through, which slit, which door it went through, is now known, or at least knowable, because it was measured that way. And that means the electron did not take both paths. By asking the question and saying, hey, I'm calling you a particle now, I'm going to measure you as a particle, tell me which gate you went through. If you do that, you've forced it to go through just one gate, and you don't get a wave-like interference pattern anymore because you have stopped asking the electron as a wave.
Dude. That's pretty cool.
It's crazy. It would work for us. Let me just really push this one step further to be very provocative. If I asked you to walk through one of two doors, I'm saying one of two doors,
right,
you could say to yourself, everything is quantum. Our universe is quantum. That means I'm a quantum particle. I'm going to go through both doors at the same time. And it would work if you could get the scale to match. See, the point about light or electrons is that the scale matched. In fact, it was true even with the water in the ripple pond. If with water in a ripple pond, if you make a really, really wide slit, like two slits, but they're super wide, then the wave comes up to the slits and continues through. The slits are so wide that it's not looking like a slit at all. It's looking like the ocean, and the wave just continues going straight along, and it doesn't turn into the little half-circle ripples, the little semicircle ripples that ripple out and interfere with each other. It just goes on as a wave. And at the edges, there's a kind of a shadow effect where the wave is kind of cut off. It's blocked by these barriers. So the only way we got the ripple effect in the first place was by having somewhat of a matching in the scale. Our slits in the wave pond wall were sort of the same size as the wavelength coming towards them. With light, the same thing. We need to get very narrow slits because light has a very small wavelength. With electrons, really narrow slits. With you and I, because we're much bigger than electrons, it turns out, and I'm not saying we're fat, I'm just saying we're bigger than electrons, it turns out our wavelength is really, 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 really small. When I say our wavelength, I mean, if you imagine me as a quantum particle and you want to run the maths and pretend, hey, Lachlan has a wavelength, right? He's a thing, he's a particle, but particles have wavelengths because they're also waves. You can work it out, and mass and velocity comes in, and you would find that my wavelength is really small, which would mean that I could only ever show that wave-like behavior if I went through a slit that was like, I don't know, like a billionth of a meter. And I can't do that. The door that I need to go through is huge compared to my wavelength, which is why I never go through two doors at the same time, right? I'm always behaving like a particle. I'm never behaving like a wave because my wavelength is not matched to the scale of the world I move in. That's what's different for electrons.
right. Okay. So here's how I see from the micro to the macro.
Yeah.
is there's sort of a deterministic, a hint of deterministic, a determinism in how I look at this, is that depending on our measurement tools,
Yeah.
depending on our perspective or who measures it,
Yeah.
a person walks past and I say, hey Lachlan, that's a very attractive person. You say, no Dan,
Right.
that person's repulsive.
Yeah.
Is I think that quantum mechanics, quantum physics, the whole quantum subject, we're all particles.
Yeah.
We're all waves. And depending on our perspective, you can see a great outcome or a terrible circumstance, depending on your position,
Right.
depending on how you look at it,
Yeah.
depending on the size of the doors that you let it walk through.